You cannot hide the truth.
Get back from here right now!
You cannot do this.
Move away immediately!
I saw her clearly at the scene. There is no doubt she was there.
The marble hallways of the Franklin County Courthouse buzzed with the familiar rhythm of a Monday morning. Attorneys hurried between courtrooms, balancing thick case files. Deputy clerks called out docket numbers, and visitors waited patiently for security screening. Every person inside the building understood that a courthouse represented more than walls and courtrooms. It represented fairness, accountability, and the promise that everyone would be treated equally under the law. A black woman in her early 40s stepped through the front entrance, carrying a worn leather briefcase and a small cup of coffee. She wore a tailored navy blue business suit with understated elegance, her hair neatly styled, and her calm expression reflected years of confidence, earned through dedication rather than privilege. She greeted the elderly security volunteer with a polite smile, before continuing toward the east corridor, where courtroom 4B was preparing for one of the city's most anticipated hearings. Most people walking past barely noticed her. She looked like another attorney arriving early for work, blending naturally into the steady flow of legal professionals. Filling the courthouse that morning, standing near the entrance of courtroom 4B, Officer Daniel Briggs adjusted the badge on his uniform while watching everyone who approached. He had served as a courthouse deputy for nearly 15 years and had developed a reputation for being strict, impatient, and quick to assert his authority. Some co-workers admired his confidence, while others quietly avoided working beside him. As the woman approached the courtroom doors, Briggs extended one arm to stop her. "Courtrooms closed until the hearing begins," he said firmly. She offered a courteous smile. "I understand. I just need to step inside for a moment." Briggs narrowed his eyes. "Didn't you hear me? I said nobody goes in." Without raising her voice, she nodded respectfully. "I have identification if you'll allow me 1 second." Before she could finish reaching into her handbag, Briggs slapped the leather credential wallet from her hand. It struck the polished marble floor with a loud crack, scattering documents across the hallway. Several conversations immediately stopped. An assistant district attorney looked up from his phone. 2 law students waiting outside the courtroom exchanged confused glances. The woman slowly bent down to collect her papers without saying a word. Instead of allowing her to retrieve them, Briggs grabbed her sharply by the arm. "I told you to follow instructions." His grip tightened. The woman looked directly at him, her voice calm despite the pain. "Officer, you're hurting me." Rather than releasing her, Briggs's frustration grew. "I've dealt with enough people who think the rules don't apply to them." Before anyone fully understood what was happening, his open hand struck her across the face. The sharp sound echoed through the corridor. The coffee cup slipped from her fingers, rolling across the marble floor as dark coffee spread beneath dozens of stunned witnesses. Silence swept through the hallway. A young court reporter covered her mouth in disbelief. An elderly veteran waiting for jury duty slowly stood from his chair. Even Briggs's partner hesitated for a split second, clearly surprised by what had just happened. The woman gently touched the reddening mark on her cheek. She never shouted, she never cursed, she never attempted to strike back. Instead, she took a slow breath and maintained a level of composure that seemed almost impossible. "Under the circumstances, officer," she said quietly, "there are security cameras throughout this hallway. Please think carefully about what you're doing." Her calm response only seemed to harden Briggs's attitude. "Now you're threatening me." "No," she answered evenly. "I'm reminding you that every officer carries the responsibility of protecting public trust. Most men and women who wear that badge honor it every single day. They deserve to have that reputation protected." A few deputies standing nearby lowered their eyes. They knew she wasn't insulting law enforcement. She was defending the principles that good officers worked every day to uphold. Briggs ignored her words. "Place her in cuffs." His younger partner hesitated. "Sir, are you sure I gave you an order?" Reluctantly, the deputy stepped forward as cold metal handcuffs closed around her wrists. Dozens of courthouse employees watched in uneasy silence, sensing that something about the encounter felt profoundly wrong. Though few yet understood how quickly the truth would begin to surface. Inside courtroom 4B, the atmosphere shifted from the noise of the courthouse hallway to the formal silence expected inside a courtroom. Every chair in the gallery was occupied. Attorneys organized files. The court reporter adjusted her stenograph machine. and spectators whispered quietly, curious about the unexpected disturbance that had delayed the morning's proceedings. The black woman remained seated at the defense table, her wrist still restrained by handcuffs. A faint red mark remained visible across her cheek, where Officer Daniel Briggs had struck her only minutes earlier. Although her appearance had become slightly disheveled, during the confrontation, her posture remained composed. She sat upright, breathing steadily, refusing to let humiliation define her presence. Officer Briggs walked confidently to the witness stand. He straightened his uniform, adjusted the microphone, and glanced briefly toward the gallery. Years of experience had taught him that confidence often shaped perception long before evidence did. After taking the oath, he cleared his throat. "Your Honor, I was performing routine courthouse security when I encountered an individual attempting to enter a restricted courtroom without authorization. His voice carried the certainty of someone accustomed to being believed. I instructed her several times to stop. Instead of cooperating, she became argumentative and ignored lawful commands. The substitute judge listened carefully. What happened next? Officer, I attempted to de-escalate the situation peacefully. Unfortunately, she resisted physical direction and created a safety concern for courthouse staff and visitors. Several people in the gallery exchanged uncertain looks. The court reporter continued, typing every word. The prosecutor stepped forward. Officer Briggs, in your professional opinion, did you use only the amount of force reasonably necessary to gain control of the situation? Absolutely, he answered, without hesitation. My responsibility is protecting everyone inside this building. Sometimes difficult decisions must be made. Within seconds, the prosecutor nodded approvingly. Did the defendant ever identify herself? Briggs folded his hands confidently. She claimed she belonged in the courtroom, but refused to provide any credible identification before becoming increasingly confrontational. At the defense table, the woman quietly observed every statement without interruption. She wasn't reacting emotionally. She was listening carefully every sentence. Every exaggeration, every omission, every contradiction. Another deputy was called to testify. Although visibly uncomfortable, he confirmed parts of Briggs' version of events. His testimony sounded rehearsed, careful, almost as though he were choosing words, designed to avoid disagreeing with a superior officer, while avoiding outright dishonesty. The judge thanked him and looked toward the defendant. Ma'am, would you like to respond? The woman stood slowly. The handcuffs produced a soft, metallic sound that echoed across the silent courtroom. Yes, Your Honor. The calm confidence in her voice immediately changed the atmosphere. She spoke without anger, without raising her voice. Without attacking anyone personally, I respect the difficult responsibilities carried by law enforcement officers. Every day, thousands of officers across this country protect communities with professionalism, courage, and integrity. Those officers deserve the confidence of the public because they earned it through fairness and accountability. Several deputies in the courtroom lowered their eyes. She continued, but public trust depends on honesty. When authority is exercised without accountability, everyone loses, including the honorable officers who faithfully wear the badge. Even the prosecutor seemed caught off guard by her measured response. She wasn't attacking policing. She was defending its highest ideals. Turning respectfully toward the bench, she continued. Officer Briggs testified that, I attempted to force my way into a restricted area. Security cameras located throughout this courthouse can verify exactly where I was standing. Before physical contact occurred, she paused. I respectfully request that all surveillance footage recorded between 8:45 and 9:15 this morning be preserved before it can be overwritten. The courtroom grew noticeably quieter. She continued with steady confidence. I also request preservation of every body-worn camera assigned to responding deputies, along with hallway surveillance, entrance cameras, and any available public recordings. Officer Briggs shifted uncomfortably in his chair. For the first time that morning, uncertainty crossed his face. The prosecutor quickly stood. Your Honor, the defendant is making requests more appropriate for legal counsel. The woman nodded politely. I understand the concern. She smiled slightly. However, every American has the constitutional right to present evidence in their own defense. Preserving evidence protects everyone involved. If Officer Briggs' testimony is accurate, the recordings will support him. If it is inaccurate, the recordings will reveal that as well. No one objected, because there was nothing unreasonable about what she had said. Justice depended on evidence, not assumptions, not appearances, not titles. The substitute judge leaned forward with growing curiosity. "You appear remarkably familiar with courtroom procedure." "I've spent much of my professional life studying constitutional law," she answered, "and I have great respect for this institution." She slowly looked around the courtroom. "This building represents something larger than any individual. It reminds every citizen that justice must be guided by facts, rather than emotion, by truth, rather than convenience." A young law clerk sitting near the back suddenly frowned. There was something strangely familiar about the woman's voice. Her manner of speaking, her professionalism, her unwavering composure. He searched his memory but couldn't immediately place her. The woman continued. "Officer Briggs testified that I refused to identify myself." She carefully glanced toward the evidence table, where her belongings had been placed. "My identification was in the credential wallet that fell to the floor during our encounter. I attempted to retrieve it before being restrained." Briggs looked toward the prosecutor. Neither spoke. She continued, "I have no desire to embarrass anyone today." Her words surprised everyone. "I believe mistakes can happen. Good officers sometimes face difficult situations. Courts exist because facts deserve careful examination before conclusions are reached." Her eyes rested briefly on Briggs, but accountability is not punishment. She spoke slowly. "Enough for every person in the courtroom to absorb each sentence. It is the foundation of public confidence. When public servants acknowledge mistakes honestly, they strengthen the institutions they represent. When truth is ignored, trust becomes the first casualty." Several spectators quietly nodded. Even some courthouse employees, who had initially assumed the officer's version of events, now found themselves questioning everything they had heard. The substitute judge folded his hands thoughtfully. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "before this court proceeds any further, I believe it's appropriate to verify your identity." The woman met his eyes with calm confidence. "I agree completely, Your Honor." With slow, deliberate movements, she reached toward the leather credential wallet, resting among her scattered belongings, while every person inside the courtroom watched in complete silence. Sensing that the next few moments were about to change everything, she carefully opened the leather credential wallet and held it where the substitute judge, the prosecutor, and the bailiff could clearly see it. The gold judicial seal reflected beneath the courtroom lights, followed by an official identification card bearing her photograph and the words, "The Honorable Judge Keisha Williams." For several long seconds, no one spoke. The silence was so complete that the faint hum of the courtroom lights seemed louder than before. The substitute judge slowly removed his reading glasses, studying the credential again before looking back at her face. The senior bailiff's expression changed instantly. He stepped forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "Your Honor, Judge Williams." The realization swept across the courtroom like a wave. The attorneys who had appeared before her in previous cases immediately recognized her. Court clerks exchanged stunned looks. Several deputies lowered their heads. Officer Daniel Briggs felt every ounce of confidence disappear. His face turned pale. As the weight of the morning's events settled over him, the woman he had publicly humiliated, the woman he had struck, the woman he had handcuffed, was one of the very judges serving in the courthouse. He was sworn to protect. The substitute judge rose from the bench. "Judge Williams, I sincerely apologize for what has occurred." She responded with the same calm professionalism she had shown from the beginning. "This isn't about me, Judge Harrison." Her voice remained steady. "This is about ensuring every citizen receives the same fairness. Our Constitution promises, regardless of who they are, how they look, or whether anyone recognizes their title." The words settled deeply over everyone present. The handcuffs were immediately removed. The red marks around her wrists remained visible. The bruising on her cheek had darkened, yet there was no anger in her expression, only quiet determination. Moments later, the courtroom doors opened once more. The senior bailiff returned, carrying a neatly folded black judicial robe. He handed it to Judge Williams. With both hands, she thanked him softly. Without drama or celebration, she slipped the robe over her shoulders. The transformation wasn't about clothing. It was about responsibility. The same woman who had entered the courthouse with dignity, despite humiliation, now stood as a reminder that justice belongs to principles, not appearances. The bailiff took his position near the courtroom entrance. His voice echoed throughout the room. "All rise." Every person stood. Even Officer Briggs Judge Williams walked toward the bench with calm, measured steps. She took a seat behind the bench, adjusted a single file, and looked across the courtroom with the same fairness she had shown throughout her career. No one could mistake who carried the authority. Now she didn't speak immediately. Instead, she allowed the silence to remind everyone that truth often needs no introduction. Finally, she looked toward Officer Briggs. Officer Briggs, this court is not concerned with revenge. Her words surprised him. It is concerned with accountability. She nodded toward the courtroom technology. Officer, please display the courthouse surveillance footage. Within seconds, the hallway cameras appeared on the courtroom monitors. Every angle, every movement. Every second, the video clearly showed Judge Williams calmly approaching the courtroom. It showed her attempting to present identification. It showed Officer Briggs knocking her credentials from her hands. It showed him striking her. It showed her offering no resistance. It showed everything exactly as it happened. No edits, no missing moments. No alternative interpretation. The courtroom watched in complete silence. The substitute judge slowly closed his notebook. The prosecutor lowered her eyes. Several deputies shifted uncomfortably. One younger officer quietly wiped tears from his eyes, realizing that one person's abusive authority had damaged the reputation of countless honorable officers who served with integrity every day. Judge Williams folded her hands. A badge is one of the greatest public trusts our nation can give. She looked directly at the deputies seated. In the courtroom, every officer who wears it carries the reputation of thousands of good men and women who risk their lives to protect complete strangers. Her gaze returned to Officer Briggs. When that trust is abused, the damage extends far beyond one incident. It weakens public confidence in every honest officer who faithfully serves their community. Briggs lowered his head for the first time that morning. He had no explanation, no excuse. Only the truth remained. The sheriff entered the courtroom with internal affairs investigators without raising their voices. They requested Officer Briggs surrender his badge and service weapon. Pending a full investigation, he complied quietly. The courtroom remained silent. Judge Williams continued, "This case serves as a reminder that justice must never depend on appearance, profession, or social status." She paused. "The Constitution protects every person equally. Whether someone enters this courthouse wearing a construction uniform, business attire, or judicial robes, they deserve dignity, respect, and due process." Several spectators nodded. Some quietly applauded. Others simply reflected on what they had witnessed. Judge Williams concluded, with words that would later be quoted across news outlets throughout the country, "True authority is never proven through force. It is proven through fairness, integrity, humility, and respect." Weeks later, Officer Briggs resigned, while multiple investigations reviewed his conduct. The courthouse introduced additional training focused on constitutional policing, professional accountability, and respectful public interactions. Many deputies welcomed the changes, recognizing that stronger accountability strengthened, not weakened, the profession they had chosen to serve. Judge Williams returned to her courtroom, continuing to uphold the law with the same grace and impartiality that had defined her career. Long before that unforgettable morning, her courage reminded countless Americans that dignity is strongest when it remains calm under pressure, and that lasting justice is built not on anger, but on truth. If this story reminded you why integrity matters more than power, share your thoughts in the comments. What part of Judge Williams's response stood out to you the most? How should officers and public officials earn and protect the trust placed in them every day? And if you'd like another powerful courtroom story about courage, accountability, and justice, overcoming abuse of authority, let us know what kind of story you'd like to see next.